Good evening, everyone. This is Seema Mehta with my colleague Deepma Jadeja. Yet another edition of Imperfect Parenting. We are here to talk to an amazing person. We are so excited to meet Shalini. Shalini's story is is something that we talk about all the time that women should do.
So
You know,
inspiring,
very
yes.
inspiring. Getting into a corporate job, not loving it, and then deciding that, I need to follow my passion. And she did exactly that. She has a master's degree in yoga and nutritional science. She's been teaching for the last 12 years and she's working on her PhD in the same field. Shalini, thank you so much for being part of this talk today. We are so excited to talk to you because this is such an important topic, which is happiness in our kids. How do we raise happy kids? So, welcome, Shalini.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you, Deepma. It was really very nice connecting with you both and being on this platform.
So let me start off by talking about, I read somewhere the way we talk to our kids, that becomes their inner voice. And, there's science to prove that sometimes it's until the age of 6 or 7, the subconscious mind starts developing and starts creating those beliefs and thoughts about yourself for a child. And say, for example, I remember, my daughter had spilled some milk one day and I went ballistic because she spilled the milk. Now I'll have to clean it up. But I saw a fear in her face, in her eyes, and I immediately retracted that anger and I said, no, I can't do this to her because this is what she's always going to be afraid to make a mistake. So let's start by this conversation about how do we make sure that that inner voice in the child is that of a happy one, that sense of self-efficacy, that even if I don't know it, I can do this. Even if I made a mistake, it's okay. How does talking to a child really make a difference in raising a happy child?
Yeah. Just to start this conversation, I would just like to, stress on one particular point. So in yoga and in mental health science, we speak about the mind frequency or the mind wave, something which we are all very commonly aware of, that the mind has different frequencies at which it works. When you're meditating, it's in a different stage. When you're angry, it's in a different frequency. Just like the radio frequency, how it is there. And to be very precisely telling in a very common language or using a common term, it would be subconscious and superconscious mind or the conscious mind. The conscious mind is something that we are right now in. We are conscious and we are talking. Subconscious mind when you're in sleep and superconscious when you're in extreme deep sleep or a very deep state of meditation. Correct. Now, when it comes to a child, it is said that when the child is born, 24 hours after the birth of the child is in super consciousness. That means the utmost powerful stage of the mind, subconsciousness. That's called the golden hour, the first 24 hours. That's when it is so important. That's where everybody comes home. That's when the child is understanding the immediate family member, the mother, especially the protective environment, and what is food, what is feed, and all these things. And in yoga, we are told, when we practice prenatal yoga, in yoga, when there is something called as, the practice for pregnancy and all this thing, they say, talk to your child in that 24 hours, all the beautiful thing you want to tell to the child, because that's recorded forever. It's there. It's put in forever. Doesn't matter however the child goes to.
Right.
Since then, until 7 years of age, the child don't develop analytical thinking or skill. So for a child to develop analytical skills, it takes 7 years of time. Until then, they're just your replica. They're just your mirror. In every way, your physical, mental, emotional, your tone, your voice, they're just your mirror. And they're just constantly recording. They're like a empty tape recorder. Remember the tape recorder that we had once upon a time? You put in the cassette and it's recording everything. They just keep looking at you and they imitate. So that they're
absorbing. Yes.
They're absorbing. And I always believe in that one statement. Children never listen. They follow. They blindly follow. So they never listen. They follow. So if you want to have a happy child, if you want to raise a happy child, you need to find your own happiness first. Because that can never be taught. That can never be. You cannot go and teach somebody to be happy. I cannot come and tell you, Seema, please be happy. Correct. That's something we find it for ourselves. And when we find it, the kids naturally pick it up.
Correct. That means what you are saying is that that means a parent is your first emotional coach, because you're literally imitating, like you said, everything that the way I behave as a parent is what is going to be reflected in their behavior as well. And we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago in one of our series when we were talking about gratitude, where we said if you are rude to people around you, Your children will learn that from you. So if you want them to be kind, you got to do the same thing so that they imitate the exact same thing that you're doing. So parents play a very vital role of being an emotional coach, right? What do you say about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the second thing I want to really insist and tell parents that most of the parents, we lose out very often because we have our own midlife crisis and adult problems from
Yes.
finance, physical, mental, emotional, financial commitment. Too many questions, too many challenges as an adult life. And we would always go back telling a child saying that if I'm losing my patience, understand what I'm going through. Know what how difficult my life is. My life is, I have so many challenges. This is happening at office. I would really request one thing. Yes, please understand, a child cannot understand this analytical data that you're giving it to them.
Yes.
If you're saying, I have a tough life at office, I have some work pressure, I have, because until 7 years of age, a child doesn't have any analytical skill. So
Yeah.
you are talking Chinese or Japanese to a child, which
They are
the
not
child
getting
is not understanding.
Yes.
And the child just needs you. The child needs you as a holistic person. And no child needs a perfect parent. No child needs.
Correct.
You
100%.
just need a parent who's understanding and kind.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I know we
You know,
talked
I'm
about
reminded of a story where when my kids were much younger, my daughter was, I think, in third standard and my son was in first standard. And we'd been through a typical crazy morning when, you know, we're rushing to get breakfast and get them ready and get to the bus on time and not miss the bus. And all kinds of madness was going on. And my son came home that evening and told me, today Didi was crying in the bus. And I immediately, obviously, externalized it. So I said, oh, did the conductor say something? Did her friend hit her? Did somebody say something mean to her, rude to her? And he said, no, it was because you shouted at her in the morning. And my heart just broke that, you know, something that I considered a daily occurrence of madness, she took so personally and it made her so sad, you know, just as she was leaving for school. So we decided that day that I was going to ask them certain questions and they were going to answer me very honestly. And on the weekend, we sat down and talked about, and I still remember this because they made a small chart out of it where it says what we need to do to keep mama and us happy. And it was so interesting because that's when we realized that we have to take control of our own happiness. And the children are, like you said, the subconscious mind is absorbing and they are taking all of their cues from us. So if we are starting a morning with panic and with crazy, behavior, they are starting to realize that going to school is this very stressful occasion or this stressful time. So we kind of put into place certain things where they came up with the ideas. They said, we should get up. How about we get up 10 minutes earlier? Or how about, we get dressed and everything and then, watch 5 minutes of, I think it was Phineas and Ferb in those days was their favorite thing. So, they got a reward because they got ready early, 5 minutes early, and nobody was freaking out. So I think that's really one thing that you're saying too, right, Shalini, where you're saying ask them how they can solve the problem instead of telling them, I need this done, otherwise I'm going to go crazy.
Also, I personally feel it's so important to ask a child. So today we are in a generation where very often we go asking a child, are you comfortable? Did anybody do a bad touch to you? There's something that we speak to our kids.
Yeah.
The question is, as human beings, as adults and as parents, how often do we ask each other, especially children, how are you feeling? I think we parents have concluded ourselves that the children are very privileged. They've got everything.
Yes.
They have an amazing life that we don't have. I think there is nothing to compare here. We went through a very struggling lifestyle. So, childhood, now they have a privilege. They have a school bus. They have a school. So everything is okay with them.
Correct.
It's very important not to assume everything is okay with them because a child doesn't know how to express.
Correct.
Expression of emotions come with authority. Today, as an adult, I owe power and I owe authority. So it is easy for me maybe to come out and say, you know what, I'm uncomfortable. I did not like the way you did. I did not like the way you spoke. As an adult, it comes naturally for me. I
Correct.
think even lots of adults still struggle to put out their
Yes.
mind.
Yes.
But when children know they don't have neither the power nor authority, it's very difficult for them to express first and very difficult for them to even understand what they're feeling.
Correct.
Correct.
Most of the time, parents would have experienced it. Something that I also see with my children too. Out of nowhere, nothing would have happened. It would have been just a normal day, but they would be really off. They would just not be interested in anything, very inactive, sitting, very dull and pale. And what happened? They're like, nothing. That happens with my daughter very often. She says, nothing. Like,
Yeah.
what happened? Really, nothing. But when I just really give her that comfort and, layering one by one, when I just take the layering out just to know how she's feeling, comes an incident that happened before 6 months.
Yeah.
Comes an incident that happened before some time, long time back.
Yeah.
And the child actually, what happens when an incident happened, children are very quick. They keep moving. Next. That's how the mind is programmed.
Correct.
They can't be in the present. For them, it's like, the moment they just keep jumping, unlike adults.
Yeah.
So when that incident happened, they move out as if nothing happened. But we
Mhm.
don't realize that it is staying there somewhere
No,
deep inside their mind.
and I think that becomes such an important role for a parent to not just stop at asking, so what happened? And if they say, no, nothing happened, if we don't stop at that, we got to keep going and peeling those layers. And that's such an important point that you made. For example, we say that happiness is a state of mind. But if your mind is also not in a happy state, you're not going to be able to help your child. Now, if your
Correct.
child is not feeling good, you need to start helping them identify what is the emotion they are feeling. Okay, so are you feeling sad? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling frustrated? Only then can we offer some strategies, or we can be a better listener if we understand what is the emotion that the child is going through. You talked a little bit about the current generation. At one point I wanted to make is, there are, we keep saying, oh, we had such a tough time growing up. We used to walk 10 kilometers. We woke up at 5 in the morning. We did this, we did that. And you guys have all the facilities, but they didn't grow up in our world. And we are not, we are in their world now. So the world has changed. At the same time, I find that a lot of the kids in this generation are looking for instant gratification. I mean, we are in the world of social media where the number of likes really matter. So, what is your take on this instant gratification, and how does that impact raising a happy child?
Actually, what I realized with kids is if you are trying to teach them something by imposing, by lecturing, by telling them stories, it rarely works because kids cannot connect. They don't understand. They can only understand something which is like a picture in front of them. See, the reason, one simple logic, why cartoon is very connect. Kids can connect to cartoons so much like unlike adults. Why? For an adult, I can grow my imagination. I can think because I have an analytical mind. A book will do. If I'm reading a book, I can picturize. And that's not the way the kids. For kids, the only way that works is audio, video, visual. That is something that's happening live in front of them. So exactly the parents also the same. When it comes to this instant gratification, so we want to tell the kids the lectures about our old past and our my parents, their parents, what I went through. Fair enough. That's nice to share your story. But please don't expect that the child will understand these things and immediately respond back. So what happens is the child takes his own time to process and think. Now, instead of me going and telling, you have to be thankful for having this, going to this school, instead of saying that actually puts a pressure of expectation on the child. The child knows, what am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to say this or that? Is what, instead, if I am being very thankful, just like that, out of no concept. And I think the biggest thing that parents do is we talk to our kids with a big agenda. We just don't know how to have a conversation with the kids without agenda.
Correct.
Every time I open my
You
mouth,
always want something at the end of it. Yes.
I have to teach. Every time I open my mouth, I have to teach something. I have to impose something. I have to correct something. I have to, put something, rub it on their face and saying that, what this is. can we have a conversation with no agenda at all? Like imagine a group of friends meeting, like, we women especially, we understand when a bunch of our school friends or college friends meet, there will be so much of ranting happening, but it's like no agenda about it. So
Yeah.
I think most of the time my children pick it up is only through that conversations. I'm just
Yes.
sitting simply watching, maybe, traffic signal. I just
Yeah.
look at it. And simple, one small example recently that happened, whenever I go to my mother's place, that's old Bangalore, Rajaji Nagar, we always commute in a two-wheeler, which is not there here. Here at my place, it's always a
A
four-wheeler.
vehicle, yeah.
So always a four-wheeler. So I took my son out and he's like, I think my back is hurting sitting in a two-wheeler because there is nothing to, lean back.
Back support,
No
yeah.
support.
And driving a two-wheeler seems quite challenging, Amma. I said, yeah, this is the reason I thank my car, because it gives me it gives me that comfort. I just said that one statement and I left it off. After coming home, I never told him you should feel thankful, you have it. No, I just
Nothing.
said I am thankful that I have a four-wheeler which gives me a little more comfort, and I'm thankful for having that. That's all. One statement,
Exactly.
no lecture.
Hmm.
After coming home, I was really very surprised to see. I just reached home. He just went, he just touched the car and he said thank you and he came home.
Wow.
Oh,
That's amazing.
So there was no lecture, there was no, it's simple.
There is a willingness
smallest-
to absorb and learn. You can give learning opportunities to children without having an agenda, and that's a great point that you've made. However, one, just to be slightly the devil's advocate here, is, I'm seeing that a lot of the children in this generation, there is an issue of resilience that seems to be coming up quite a bit. That are our children very fragile? Are they not resilient? There's a lot of mental health being discussed. I'm not saying that there was no mental health issue when we were growing up. It was there. It was probably not discussed as openly as it is now. It doesn't mean that the mental health issues have gone up in the current generation, especially I'm talking about teenagers at the moment. So if we want to build, I remember one of the ways in which resilience was built in us was through chores. You got to do chores in the house. You got to do some work in the house. We had to set the table. We had to take the stuff away from the table. We had to help our mother and our father in everything that we did. And I think that made us very hardworking, very responsible, all of those things without the lecture, as you said. So what is your take on, engaging our children in activities where, it doesn't have to be a difficult thing like, oh, you have to do these things, but chores really help us stay grounded, stay more responsible. Anything about that? And does it link with
I
happiness?
totally accept and agree with this. For example, we adults, when I'm not okay, I just go open a book and read, because that's been a habit from my childhood. Or I just go start cleaning the home. That's my way of doing it. Now, how will cleaning a home help me? It's just a momentary pause. Basically, it is about me figuring it out as to what can I do to make myself feel better. See, here the question is not how we can make our children feel better. It's only our job is to ensure that they figure out on their own. That's
Correct,
the whole
correct.
point.
Absolutely.
They have to figure out on their own. What works for me might not work for them.
Correct.
So
Perfect.
if I start drawing mandala, for example,
Yeah.
there are certain things my children have picked up. I start doing mandala, or I hold a Buddha statue. There's a Buddha statue which is very close to my heart. So I hold it. They just come and say, I know you're not okay. Something is going on with you. You want me to talk to you. What can I do to you? What can I do to make you feel better? If there's something I want to talk, I talk to them, or I just tell them that give me some time, I'll come back.
Correct.
When this happened, my children have naturally picked it up. So it depends on person to person. Like my daughter, she says, I need some time. Please give me some time. I want to be in silence. I absolutely let her be herself. She'll just go shut the door. She's 6 years of age. She'll sit for some time. She'll come back saying that I felt bad for this. Whatever you did, friend did, daddy did, and this is what I feel. I think it's really very important to let the child talk.
And
Absolutely.
being respectful about the time that they need to kind of calm down and say, okay, now I am ready to talk. One of the other things that I always did when my kids were growing up, and, I didn't know, there were a lot of times when I didn't do these things, but once I heard it, I thought that was a great thing that I started, was when they come back from school, instead of asking them about, what was the homework, or how did you do in your test, or what are your marks? Did you get such and such marks in such and such test? Instead of that, I would just ask them, what made you happy today? Right? And they would immediately, you could literally see in their persona, their brain switching around and saying, oh, I've got to think about what made me happy. And it would be
Absolutely.
simple things like,
Draw attention to
so-and-so,
that. Yeah.
like such and such brought, a snack which I really loved and she shared it with me. Or so and so, let me sit next to him in the bus. Things like that. So it was very, very small things. But what happened was it opened up what you said, Shalini, beautifully, was it opened up those chances to have conversations without agendas.
Mm.
Actually, and also as Seema wanted to connect this doing daily chores to mental health, I'm very particular at my place. And if you see my Instagram post, I'm very often sharing about my kids cooking, doing household work, cleaning vegetables. There's something.
Yeah.
And I also, recently I shared a post or a story. I remember I just were told the language that we use with kids are so important. That's how actually this whole communication started.
Yeah.
So when
very
my
important.
kids are doing daily chores, it so happened that one day a friend of mine who was like, "You're so lucky, your kids help you." And it hit me really very hard. It really, really hit me very hard when she said that my kids are really helping me. And I said, no, they're not helping me. They're doing their work.
Their own
There's
work.
nothing to help me about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that moment that happened, I don't want my kids to think that it is mom's job and I'm helping her.
I'm helping
do
her.
it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no one is helping anyone. You're helping your own self. So I always tell my kids, feeding yourself is your responsibility. Maybe you're too young to figure out everything. I'm just here for a moment to help you until you figure it out.
Correct.
Feeding yourself is your responsibility. Taking care of your body is your responsibility. Taking
Correct.
care of your mind is your responsibility. So there is nothing like I am raising you. You are raising your own self. I'm just there next to you to help you figure your own self
I
out.
seriously
That
hope
is so
I seriously hope
fabulous.
that all the parents are listening to this extremely important point.
Yes.
In fact, I just love the example you gave about your friend saying you're so lucky. The same thing has happened to me as well. I have a daughter who's in college right now. And I remember growing up, I used to constantly tell her, "Hey, pick up your stuff, make your bed, this, that." And then finally, now that she's in college and she wanted to buy some additional equipment for her work. And I said, you know what? My job was to send you to college and you're 20 years old. If you want to buy this equipment, I think you'll have to figure out a way to pay for it. And she went ahead and got 2 jobs for herself, which are very small jobs, but she got the job and she's paying for her own equipment. And I feel so proud that at this point that, you know what, I think that when you set the reasonable expectation, and that's the next thing I want to talk about, what kind of expectation should we set when we are talking to our children? We need to be reasonable. I think sometimes parents expect too much. I mean, you may not have got 100 out of 100 in math, but we want all our children to have 100 out of 100 in math and science and do very well in school and be a champion athlete, be an excellent actor, take part in all the clubs and activities. I mean, let's be reasonable. So, how do we set reasonable expectations for our kids?
I think
Yeah,
my
it's the
opinion on this.
expectations, I think. I'm just thinking it's the expectations that also, just to add to what Seema said, sets the tone for their self-worth, right? What is their self-worth going to be as adults? Can I do this? Am I capable? Am I worthy of receiving? All of this starts at this age where, hey, like Shalini said, you can feed yourself.
Yeah, actually, my take on this would be a little shocking to most of them because I have a very, very, I don't know, call it revolutionary or whatever way of thinking towards it. And my thing would be don't even have any expectation at whatsoever age to understand how the child perceives those expectations. It's very easy to say, do this, do that. It's about the child. And I've always felt when left free, the child does much better. So the way I tell my child, as a mother, of course, we will have expectations, no denial about it. I would only tell my child one thing. My expectation with you is you take care of your own body, mind, and emotions at every stage of your life. One. Second thing, I expect you to really love yourself and prioritize yourself, no matter what age. That's my expectation as a mother. That's what I would expect from you.
Correct.
And third thing is that just ask yourself one question. Did I give my best today?
Perfect.
And you need to find out that answer. I'll not be able to find out that answer. So for example, my son came back to me, I'm like, I scored only 6 out of 10 today or 5 out of 10 today. Amma, maybe I did not give my best. I said, no, it doesn't work like that. Best is not 10 out of 10. Given the physical, mental, emotional condition today, 5 was your best, then that you have given your best.
Awesome. Very
Yes.
nicely said.
Very
Well said.
well put.
Correct.
Well said.
And maybe tomorrow 10 is your best. Maybe day after tomorrow 2 is your best. So just ask that question. Did you give your best today for what you are? And if you can satisfy yourself, yes, I gave my best, you're done. You don't have to explain anything to anyone.
Yeah, I think we need to get out of the culture of I got 97 out of 100. Arey, where did you lose the 3 marks? We have to get out of that mode right away. And that's so beautiful said. Very well said, Shalini. The next point I want to talk about is, how we overindulge our children. Sometimes I feel like, I remember when we used to travel, from one city to another, we would get into the car. We did a lot of road trips as children. And obviously there were no TVs, there were no gadgets, nothing was there. And my mom used to say, look out of the window. It's okay to get bored. And I think a lot of the creativity that we embraced came from that boredom. And, I think that I feel like nowadays I find that a lot of parents are constantly looking for ways to occupy their children or to overindulge them. I don't think that raises a happy child. I mean, what is your take on that?
Absolutely. To be honest, I have never bought an educational toy for my child ever. In this, my daughter is 6 and my son is 8. I have never put them into some extraordinary coding class and this class and that class and learn this, learn that. So I've never bought an educational toy. I have never sat in front of internet exploring what to teach a 6-year-old, what to teach a 5-year-old, what are the things to be. No. I feel the first 8 years of a child is laying the foundation of them exploring their own self. Right. This is just an upgradation. See, basically, it's like this. At grade 1, we learned 1 plus 1 is 2. That is addition. In your 12th grade, you're going to learn the same addition in a very complex way. Mm-hmm. As simple as that. So what are we, as adults, what am I doing today? I'm sitting, finding my passion, finding my purpose in life, finding what I am, working for my body, working for my health. Isn't it? That's the overall goal. Why am I working? Again, it's the personal thing. Why am I making money? It's again taking care of myself, my passion, my goal. End of the day, I need to be happy. So I do multiple things professionally, personally to keep myself happy, right? Correct. And I don't think so. That's going to start once the day you finish your graduation. That starts from the day one.
You can't postpone happiness, but happiness has to happen every single minute.
So
yes.
It's not one of the things that I get very stressed out about is a lot of kids also have started saying this, that I'll be happy when you buy me this, or I'll be happy when this happens or that happens. And somehow, sometimes I think they pick it up from us also, because, I remember when the pandemic started, I was about to get my kitchen, some work done in my kitchen, and it stopped. Obviously, I couldn't get it done because the first lockdown came. And 2 years later, I just got it done. And my son asked me, he said, "Are you happy now?" And I said, no, I've been, and I felt so bad because it sounded as if I had postponed my happiness till after my kitchen got done, right? And I think that was a wrong message that I gave him, because I should have, he should know that I'm always happy. I'm excited that my kitchen is done, but it's not, that did not take away from my happiness.
But isn't it unreasonable? I mean, nobody can be constantly happy. I think happiness is sometimes it takes
Exactly. It so happens, especially with grandparents at home. I see that thing, especially with my parents. If the child is crying, child is feeling bad, they feel the child shouldn't cry, shouldn't feel bad, and they immediately have to jump. And I said, stop fixing a child. Let the child fix its own self. Let them learn how to fix their own self. You don't have to go and you just be there right next to him when they're going through that process. You please don't spoon feed them. One. Absolutely. And I would technically like to add one thing here. For all the questions that you asked, Seema, about, resilience and everything that we spoke so far, there's one science or, scientific thing behind a child's mind is until the age of 18. So why we call it as adulthood? Why 18 is already called as adulthood? Why not 19? Why not 17? Why not 16? There is a science behind it. Right. Until the age of 12, the amount of energy that your body produces is unimaginable. It's like a nuclear bomb at work. We always have that, right? A child who's never tired at home. Like we are the adults, like another 2-3 hours of the day, we are like tired, and we keep
Exhausted.
telling, I just don't understand where he gets the energy throughout the day, because the body is capable of producing that much energy.
Yeah.
Now, that's a physical energy, and the mental energy which is being produced is basically like producing electricity, and you have to utilize it. You don't utilize that energy, and you're going to store it and keep it, and it's going to get into some other way and some other
It's
way.
going to explode.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to react in some other way.
Correct.
Yeah.
So one reason why I have my kids, if I feel my kids are in a right place where I'm able to communicate, talk, raising happy children, is because I let them really utilize that energy. They run, hop, they're never at home. One thing I see is that off late parents have become super protective and wants to keep the children inside the four walls, not let them do anything. Don't climb on this, don't get up here, don't. Yes, I agree. My
Lot
son
of
has a lot of
instructions,
marks. My son has a lot of marks on his body. I fell this there, I broke this here. Yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
No, it's perfectly fine for me. Now, you want to lock the potential energy inside a 10 by 10 room and want the child to have a best behavior. If the energy is not coming out through the body, the energy is going to come out through the mind. You will
Correct.
have a child who's throws tantrums. You will have a child who's very highly upset, screams, and very unhappy. Then you have to be patient enough to deal with it.
Correct. Correct.
And then
That
it
is
goes back to setting the
Hyperactivity comes
expectation.
from that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it goes back to setting that expectation that you have to understand. This is great. I don't think that every parent should be given this information right ahead of time, especially just when they are pregnant. That you expect this to happen. Expect what to expect when you are expecting should now change. I think Shalini, you might want to write a book about this because these are some very important pointers. Now when I go back and think about it, you're right that if it doesn't come out physically, it'll come out verbally. It'll come out in some emotionally. It is going to, this energy is going to get expended somehow or the other. Which leads me to the next and the last point, which is about conversations. I think the importance of having conversations. One survey we had done in one of our classes, we asked our kids, how many of you actually share a meal together? And about 75 to 90% of them said, we don't eat together. We either sit in front of the TV and eat, or we sit in our own rooms, or we all have different schedules. Everybody is so busy in their own schedules, especially after the COVID has hit. People are sitting at home, working from home, and there are no hours left now. It's just like you're working all the time. So this time to have these very crucial conversations that parents and children have. Now that Diwali is also coming up, there are traditions that we have now created for our families. What is your take on, having the right kind of conversations and setting time for it?
Very important. At my place, let me tell you, I finish my dinner at 6. That's my routine, and that's something that I stick to. But I can't expect my kids to eat at 6 o'clock and then go to bed. So their dinner time is usually 7:30. At my place too, it's very often that we don't sit for a meal together. Thanks to pandemic, that's happening because of pandemic, that we are all syncing with the time and sitting together. Otherwise, no. So what happens is there is some part of the time that we fix. And to be very honest, we as a family can't sit together because I am very busy with my schedule, and my schedule is very busy in the morning and evenings, and in between I am free. Unlike rest of the profession, where like my husband is free in the morning and evenings, but throughout the day he works. So what we have ensured that whenever he's available, he talks to the kids. Whenever I am available, I talk to the kids.
Correct.
And it's very important. And I want to, I mean, it's a small observation that you can make. Whenever you go with an agenda, the kids easily make out, and they really don't feel like talking anything. It's because they're only waiting and watching what is your reaction going to be. If I tell this, what mama is going to do. If I tell this, what daddy is going to do. So I don't make it a point that, chalo, let's sit and talk together. I pick up a casual conversation, and every time I have a conversation, I request parents, please don't ask question to the kids. What is happening? Why are you feeling?
Yes.
Why this? Why that? How did that happen? How did this happen? I will be the first person to talk. For example, when I know that they're not okay, I just go. When I know that my son is not okay, I will be fine. I'll be perfectly fine. But I just go and say, I don't feel good. I feel like talking to you. Can I talk to you? Will you be willing to listen to me and help me out with this? He said, yeah, okay. And then I start telling something that I felt bad about. Eventually he says, I'm also feeling something bad. Isn't it very mutual that you say
sharing.
something
That's
and
a
I
great
say
idea.
something?
Yeah, great idea.
They start saying, because children have understood one thing. my parents always lecture and correct me. We are always correcting the child every step. Why are you standing like this? Why are you sitting like this? Why are you walking like this? So the children don't open up because they know they'll be corrected. Without that, if you can have a very peaceful, a very casual conversation, beginning with you, that makes the child feel secure. Okay, Amma is talking about her emotions, her insecurities. I can also talk about my insecurities. I can also talk about my mind. I think that's how we should.
I think that comes from the very social conditioning, isn't it? Okay, boys cannot cry, girls run in a certain way, or parents are supposed to be strong all the time. So I think all this is coming from the social conditioning, and I love the way we are ending this conversation, because it's kind of going back to what you said right in the beginning, which is that if you want to raise happy children, you need to find happiness in yourself first. Because if a parent is happy, the children will automatically be happy. We have to set those right expectations. This has been such an amazing conversation. And I'm going to ask you one more time to write that book for people when you're pregnant, what to expect when you're expecting. Shalini, any last words before we wrap up?
One last thing I would always love to tell is, you are not raising a child, you are raising a human being. So the love, care, and respect you as an adult would always seek from the society or from the family, please give the same love and respect what you would give it to a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old in the society, to a 6-month-old too. So that's the way to raise a human being, because somewhere when we say raising children, authority automatically, it's a very default thing. I'm an adult and I'm raising someone who's very tiny or smaller to me.
Yes.
Instead, if we say, I am raising a fellow human being, doesn't matter irrespective of age, and when every fellow human beings deserve respect, love, and unconditional, listening.
Your entire perspective will change. Your perspective changes. Absolutely.
Then automatically will be a beautiful human being.
Fabulous. This has been a fabulous conversation. We had so much fun. I hope you enjoyed talking to us as well.
Absolutely.
So, we are going to include in this series a set of very interesting hacks to raise happy kids. Very much, many of the points are the ones that Shalini has covered.
Yes.
And there are some videos that we're going to be attaching to this post. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week on Wednesday at 5 o'clock for the series Imperfect Parenting. Thanks, Shalini.
Thank you so much.
Until then, remember to choose happiness. It's a choice.